From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NoCo, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Friday, January 26th. I'm Erin O'Toole. We hear it mentioned a lot. This region is growing quickly, and that increasing population puts pressure on a lot of different facets of life, things like housing, healthcare, schools, and transportation. But love it or hate it, growth is inevitable. So how do we make sure it happens strategically and equitably? One solution is to stop making so many distinctions between Weld and Larimer counties and start bringing these communities together. That's what a new report from the Community Foundation of Northern Colorado suggests. It presents data from across the region to show how issues like housing and healthcare intersect across county lines, and how coming together might just be the smartest way to alleviate these problems. I sat down with the Community Foundation's president and CEO, Kristin Todd, to unpack what's in this first-of-its-kind report. There is a lot of data that's readily available in any number of reports. How many people are moving here? How many jobs have been created recently? This report is really a little bit different. And I'm wondering, first of all, just the impetus behind this. Why did you want to do something like this? And did you do new research for it, or did you kind of lean on what was out there?
That's a great question. And at the Community Foundation, we realized that, yes, there is a lot of data available, but nobody really had assembled the data in a way that allowed us to look at the health and well-being of the entire region. And that's a big area that the Community Foundation is interested in. We are a regional champion. We want to promote solving really big, challenging issues as a region. We feel like we're better together. Rising tide lifts all boats. And so we're really promoting regionalism, and regionalism as a way to solve some really challenging issues.
And I think this report is so different in so many different ways. It's organized into these categories that, again, do not seem like a typical report like this. For example, sheltering and caring talks about housing, but it also talks about childcare availability and caring for an aging population. Was that something you wanted to do right from the outset?
Yes. So we realized that if you're going to look at the health and well-being of an entire region, there's a lot of different areas that you need to look at. And so we wanted to create a framework that made the information and the data accessible in a way that perhaps it hadn't been before. So we worked with some partners at CSU to create this framework that has the 6 different intersections, if you will. And that's that's why we ultimately named the report Intersections, is because everything is related. And whether you're looking at the scarcity of water as we grow and the lack of affordable housing, those two things are very, very, very connected. There's an intersection between water and available housing and childcare and so we really wanted to look at the data in these categories that made it more accessible to the average person who is living here and feeling maybe some of these pressures, but looking at it in a different way.
Kind of a more holistic way, getting out of the silos.
Exactly. Again, there's a theme, right, of getting out of silos. And I think another reason this report is different and something we really tried to achieve is that we didn't want to present just data. We wanted the data along with the lived experience and the stories and the personal testimonies of how it is feeling, how these pressures are feeling to people who live here. And so in the report, you'll notice there are lots of quotes from everyday people we know in our community who talk about how these pressures are impacting them in particular.
The report really speaks to some of the unique challenges that we're facing in Northern Colorado, and I think a lot of these are driven by growth. Population growth and the housing crunch is really affecting a lot of industries, including agriculture, which is Northern Colorado's lifeblood, or one of those things that is the lifeblood. Could you sort of lay out the problem a little bit more?
Sure. And I think, again, like the story that this report tries to tell is that, first of all, Northern Colorado is a magical place. We all love it. We all live here. And because it's so special, we have a lot of people who are moving here and who also want to experience the magic of northern Colorado. And so we are the two fastest growing counties, Weld and Larimer, in the state, and frankly, some of the fastest growing counties in the country. And we're very careful to say that that's not necessarily an all good or an all bad thing. Growth is what we call in the report a double-edged sword. It is our reality, and I think it brings both opportunities and challenges. And so we acknowledge that, and then we launch into these 6 intersections, if you will, that you mentioned just a moment ago, and talk about the pressures that we're feeling as a result of population growth. I think that people are feeling this, whether it's people are really having a hard time finding affordable childcare, or moving further and further into our rural areas to find affordable housing, or the connection between the agricultural industry and new housing developments. And how do we manage that as a region? Who do we want to be when we grow up, if you will? And we believe that if we are proactive and come together as a region and have conversations, we are better able to manage some of the pressures that we're feeling.
And again, just to come back to this idea of regionalism and solving these problems together, I mean, how likely is it? What are the challenges of having not just individual cities tackle these pressure points, but really having people come together and work together? And what do you think needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? And we can identify these challenges, but then what do we do about them? And, the Community Foundation is just one cog in the wheel. We do not have the answers. We're very quick to say we do not have the answers to some of these challenging questions, but we can be the kitchen table, and we can bring really smart, committed, caring citizens together to have some of these conversations. And so that's part of also what we're trying to achieve with the report, is put out a call to action and then allow an opportunity for people to engage.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. How are you hoping people will engage with this?
Sure. A couple of different ways. So we have a website, NoCoIntersections.org. There's a digital copy of the report on the website. We also have a way that we're asking to share your story with us. If you have a story about a challenge or a pressure or an intersection, if you will, if you are doing some of this work already and trying to solve some of these pressures, or know of groups that are, there's also a place to put that on our website. And then I really think over the next year, my hope is that this report can inform conversations, it can inform philanthropists, it can inform policymakers, and provide some common language and a launching pad so that we're all starting from the same place and using similar language and having a common understanding of what some of the challenges are.
Kristin, thank you so much for talking with me.
Oh, you are so welcome. It is my pleasure.
You'll find links to the Community Foundation report in our show notes and at kunc.org. And we want to know what you think. Is Northern Colorado growing too fast? If so, how do we put on the brakes? You can send a text or leave a voicemail at 970-614-5323. Please tell us your name and city you're in. We may use your comment in a future episode. You can also email us at noco@kunc.org. That's it for us today here on In the NoCo. Our theme music was composed by Colorado artist Robbie Reverb. Robin Vincent is our executive producer. I'm your host, Erin O'Toole. We'll be back with you next week with more of what's happening in Northern Colorado. Have a great weekend.